I just want to begin with an opening illustration. My family loves to go to First Walk on Alpine. Have you ever been to First Walk on Alpine? Yes, a couple people. It's a great Chinese place, good food. The reason we go there is their Kung Pao chicken is to die for. It's fantastic. So when our family goes there, we will sit down, circular table usually, and often they'll give us what I call is a Chinese zodiac calendar. Have you ever seen a Chinese zodiac calendar? It's always a placemat. And while we're waiting for our food, inevitably we start having a discussion about fortune, future, fate, all of that stuff. Because the Chinese zodiac, it's kind of different than the normal astrology thing. And I know I'm not supposed to talk about that. I'm just telling you what happens. In the Chinese zodiac, they say what year you're born is the type of animal you are. And so I'm born in 1966, and the Chinese zodiac says I'm a horse. And I was looking up a horse, and it says a horse is high-spirited, energetic, and a beautiful animal. So I think it's right. I think the Chinese zodiac is right, because I was born in 1966. It also says I should marry a dog, someone loyal, protective, and honest. And in 1970, when my wife was born, she's a dog. See, it works. It's perfect. But the more I think about it, Chinese fortunes kind of paint with a broad brush. So that means everybody born in 1966 is the same and is going to have the same fortune? I don't know about that. How can everyone born in the same year be just alike? It doesn't seem possible. And then at the end of the meal, they hand out, what do they hand out at the end of the meal? Fortune cookies. And we all know fortune cookies, they just don't come true. One of the most recent fortune cookies I got was, you will be surrounded by luxury in your later years. I'm in my later years. It's not working too well. I want to be surrounded by luxury. Here's another fortune cookie I got. 2 horses run a race. The fastest one wins. Like, how is that a fortune? I don't understand. That's not a fortune. Anyhow, when I grew up, though, I had something better than fortune cookie. I had my lucky 8-ball. Did you ever have a lucky 8-ball? You ask it a question, you shake it, and it will either say yes, no, or try again later. Try again later. I shook it today. Is my sermon going to be good? It said nope, no. I think it was right. Anyhow, I'm kidding. The Greeks called this fate. They called this fate. It's being at the mercy of the fates. The Greeks believe there's these 3 beautiful but evil ladies. One spun thread, and it represents birth. The second one measured out the thread, and it represented how long you live. And then the third one went and just chopped the thread where they wanted. Represents death. And you never know when it's coming. And you never know how long you have, but you are at the mercy of fate, and you just can't change it. Sadly, some people view Christianity like that. When you hear the word sovereign God, meaning he knows the end from the beginning, people are like, oh, so we're puppets. He pulls our strings, he tells us what we're going to do, and we have no choice in the matter. Aren't we then mere slaves to his will? And do we actually have agency, or do we live fortune cookie lives where we really don't decide life on our own terms? Scripture declares we were designed to be worshipers, to worship God. In worship, the foundation of worship is love, and the foundation of love is free choice. I can't compel you to love me. That's not love. That's robotic reaction. But worship is predicated on agency. I have the choice to worship, to bow my knee or not. And today we're going to see how this works, how it works in life, and how it works in changing your future. You have the agency to respond in either self-interest or love. If you can, open up to the book of Matthew chapter 2. The title for today is basically, when we look ahead to 2025, you get to decide. Do you want to be like Herod, or do you want to be like the wise men? You decide. This is a story that still is in line with the Christmas season. You'll know it well. We sing Christmas songs about it. But it's really called the Epiphany. It looks forward to the new year, and a lot of churches use this passage for it. But I think it's very appropriate for us to glean principles on how to face the new year, because honestly, a lot of people, they fear the new year. They are worried about it, and they don't want another new year. We just survived 2024, not another year like that. So let's begin in verse 1 of chapter 2 of Matthew. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the time of King Herod, so King Herod was the Jewish ruler of Judea. He was a pawn of Rome. We don't need to go into that, but King Herod was the ruler. Magi, or wise men from the east, came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. And word for Messiah is basically king, the anointed one. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they responded, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be shepherd of my people, Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly, and he found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem, and he said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I may too go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way. And the star they had seen, when it rose, went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. They were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and they worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures, presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. We'll stop there, but we'll continue with more in a little bit. So when you look forward to the new year, what are you hoping for? If you'd ask me, I just want a good year. But then the question is, what is a good year? And then the next question, what makes for a good year? Does a good year just occur? Like, am I passively waiting for good things to happen? Am I just in cookie, Chinese cookie fortune person that has to wait for things to happen? Or do I have agency? Can I affect my year? Number one today, you are not a victim of the fates. That's what we're going to learn. Nor are your hands tied when it comes to how the world affects you. God has given you the means to participate in the future. Let me say it like this. Your new year will be determined by what you want. Want is that thing you most desire. And that thing you most desire will motivate you to go after it. It moves you, gives birth then to expectations. And it's your expectations that sadly determine your mood and your outlook on life, whether something is actually good or bad. This is called the tyranny of expectations. If you desire something, you want something, and if it happens, everything's good. Man, I want a raise, I got it. It's been a good year. I got good health. I have a new house, I have a new car, my relationships are working out. So if you can obtain what you want, then your year has been successful. However, if we don't get what we want, then the year's a failure. It was a washout. There are people still depressed right now over the elections. Like depressed. And did you know really national elections don't do too much for your life? It's a washout because it didn't go my way. This is called the tyranny of expectations. And in this story, Herod is chained to his desires and expectations. He's ruled by them. So let's talk about wants, because these two main wants will direct your future. And the two wants are going to be epitomized by Herod, the ruler of Judea, and the wise men, the people who just came searching from afar. It's interesting when you talk about the wise men, it is really not known if there were just three. We think there's three because of the gifts that are listed. One brought gold, one brought frankincense, one brought myrrh. People think gold represents Jesus as the king. Frankincense is kind of like the sense of the priestliness of Jesus, that he's heavenly. And then myrrh is a burial cloth, that he's going to die. I think some of that's true. But people think there's only three. There's a possibility there might have been about 1,000 stargazers who came. That's why Herod and the city of Jerusalem was all disturbed. They were up in arms. Oh, what is going to happen? So we don't know how many people actually went to go see Jesus and Mary. But what is interesting about both of these people, Herod and a wise man, both of them started from the exact same place. In the same way, 2025 starts the same for all of us. It's fresh, it's new, it hasn't happened yet. It's how we approach it that's the difference. So you can say Herod and the wise men, both were people that were important and they had means. That means they were wealthy and they could have funded whatever they wanted. Whatever kind of trip to Jerusalem or Bethlehem, they could have funded it. Second thing, they're both given the same information about the birth of the Messiah. They both know the promise is there. It's offered as an invitation. And the third thing is, nothing holding them back from going. What is interesting, I should have put a third group in here. The priests, they knew and they just didn't care. They were just indifferent. But Herod really cares about the birth, and the wise men really care about the birth. But they both care for different reasons. Herod wanted to win. Herod wanted to win. What do I mean by this? Herod wanted to keep his power, his position, and his prestige. He wanted to be on top. He wanted to win. He wanted to be better than everybody else, and he definitely didn't want any new up-and-coming king to take his throne. He wanted to win. Life was about him. It was about his greatness. It was about his ease, his comfort, his wealth, his personal success. Everything was about him. So when I say he wanted to win, I'm just meaning he was self-absorbed. Here comes this baby. He didn't care about the baby. He cared about his life. In comparison, the wise men came to worship. That's what they wanted. They knew something was happening that was bigger than them. They wanted to be there. They wanted to see. And I like how verse 2 expresses it. So look at verse 2 of Matthew 2. During the time of King Herod, Magi came to the east, and they asked, here's what they asked. They just wanted to know, where is the one who's been born the king of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to just worship him. That's really all we want. That's what we want. They wanted to see the work of God firsthand, with their own eyes. So you could say, how about you? What do you want? When you look forward to 2025, what do you want? Do you want to experience win after win after win? To gain as much as you can, to be better than everybody else? Or do you just simply want to worship God? How you answer that will affect your year. It's going to affect everything. We're going to see that in a second. But the next question is, how can I tell what I want? Because sometimes it's hard to know what deep down is my motive, what's really going on. And I'm going to talk about two ways from this story how to tell what you really want. It's interesting, the book of John, chapter 1. I was doing a devotional. This one summer, I wanted to just meditate on every red letter of Jesus in the book of John. The red letters are what Jesus actually says. John chapter 1, the very first thing that happens, Jesus is walking, and John the Baptist points at him and says, "Behold, that's the Lamb of God. He's come to take away the sins of the world." Two of John the Baptist's disciples said, "Well, then I'm going to follow him." So while Jesus is walking, he turns around, he looks at the disciples, and the very first letter he asks to them is he says, "What do you want?" In other words, why are you following me? Why are you following Jesus? What do you want? Do you want Jesus to help you win? To get things? To have joy? To be important? Or do you follow Jesus to please the Father? What do you want? To me, that's the core question of your life. And it's hard to know, but I've noticed something. If you examine your heart, specifically the way you respond to life when it gets hard, you'll be able to tell what you want. I'll say that again. If you examine your heart, especially the way you respond to life when it gets hard, when you're not getting what you want, how you respond will tell me if you're either a winner or a worshiper. So for Herod, let's start with him. Herod and winners are those people who are in it for their own glory. They will behave in certain ways when things don't go their way. And so often they try to get ahead of the game and they try to control the results. And the way they do that is through the 3 C's. They calculate, they manipulate, and then they control the events, and then they command people to carry out what they want done. It's exactly what Herod does. And people do this in your world, and you know it when they do it. But you can tell you are a winner when you can't stop thinking about what you want, and when people threaten it, you start getting manipulative and calculating. So right from the very beginning, if we look at verse 3, look what Herod does. When King Herod heard that there's this group coming, very important group coming to see the baby, he's disturbed. That means in his heart, he's troubled. He doesn't like it. It's a threat. So he can't stop thinking about it. So what he did in verse 4, he called together all the people's chief priests, all the smart guys, and the teachers of the law. So he wanted to know when was the Messiah to be born and where. And they told him a prophecy from Micah, which probably was written 600 to 400 years before Jesus came. Oh, the town of Bethlehem. That's where you can find him. So look at verse 7. So Herod called these magi secretly, he's manipulating the situation, and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. So he is consumed by it. He had to learn everything about it. And winners, when you want something, it consumes you. A job, monetary success, an object, a person. And when that thing consumes you, you get very obsessed with it. You can't stop thinking about it. And if you can't get it, your mood becomes affected negatively. That's how you know if you're in this life for just you. Winners then do what they can to control the situation. So it goes their way. They maneuver and manipulate and try to move chess pieces so they will win. Look at verse 8. Go and search carefully for the child. This is what he said to them. And as soon as you find him, report to me. Report to me. And then he lies about it so that I too can go worship him. He feigns his reason for wanting to know. People who want to win do everything they can to grab success for themselves or have things the way they want them, and things must go their way. We call them controlling. But there's a difference between wanting things to be done and making sure they get done. Big difference. And then finally, selfish winners command others to do their bidding. Look at verse 8. He says, come back and report to me. Verse 13, when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother, escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you why. For Herod's going to search for the child, and he's going to kill him. Ooh, he's going to make sure he doesn't lose his throne, and he's going to destroy that child. Not only that, look at verse 16. When Herod realized he'd been outwitted by the Magi, he's furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and in the vicinity from the age of 2 and under. Talk about a sick man. But what happens with selfish winners, those who are consumed with themselves, they use threats, they use commands to get what they want. Imperatives become part of their vocabulary. You must, you have to, got to do it my way. And the biggest way you can kind of tell you're this kind of person is people are always walking on eggshells around you. They don't want to make you mad. That could be a sign you're a very controlling and self-centered person. Do you get mad when things don't go your way? Do you use command words like must, always, and have to? And then here's just a real tough question. And ask it to yourself. Tell me, why do things always have to be done your way? You really think you rule the world? I read this Christian psychologist said the strangest thing about human beings that are made in the image of God is when they turn dark, from our brains, we really think we're smarter than everybody in this world. Ooh. Worshippers, however, are those who are not in it for their own glory and gain. They're in it for the glory of God. They live for the glory of God. So when bad things happen, they really don't get that upset. They don't demand. They see life as an opportunity for God to show up even in the bad, and sometimes mostly in the bad. Watch what the wise men do. They do two things. They both search, and then when they find answers, they go and seek. They look for promises, they look for signs, and then when they're given, they allow those signs to change their behavior. They do what they found. So they search the scriptures, they search the world. Psalm 19 says the heavens declare, day after day they pour forth speech. They were even looking for signs in the sky. They went to the scriptures to solidify that. They go to Micah 5:2, Bethlehem, land of Judah, will be the king. So after they search, they seek. They said they traveled, some people speculated they traveled 1,500 miles, 15,000 miles, or 1,500,000 miles. What am I saying? 1,500 miles. I'm bad at math. That's why I'm a preacher. Give me a break. Give me a break. Ben, you're good at math. You're laughing at me. Stop the laughter. I used to coach Ben. I can take it back. So then they seek by faith, and they give their lives sacrificially to find what they're searching for. It's funny about a worshiper. A worshiper doesn't look for God so they can get. They worship God so they can be with Him. I love this illustration. I use it often. Imagine a guy and a girl have been dating a long time. The guy falls in love with the girl, like he's madly in love with her. So one day he pulls up in front of her house and he's dressed in a nice suit. And he tells her to dress up really nice in a fancy dress. She comes out of her front door and she jumps into the passenger seat. And while she's sitting, and the car is running and you can hear the engine purring a little bit, he goes into his pocket and pulls out a blue little box. It's velvet. He opens up that box and there's a gleaming ring. And she looks at that ring. And she doesn't hear anything from this point on. She just looks at the ring, opens the door, runs back in the house, up to her bedroom, into the bathroom where her vanity mirror is, and just stares at it. And the guy's in his car going, What just happened? What just happened? If all she wanted was a ring, what's worth the relationship? What is it? I think a lot of times people come to God just for the ring. But God wants us. Sometimes He'll wait to give us rings until He's captured our heart, because once He captured our heart, that thing won't capture us. Worshipers understand that. It's funny, a couple of years ago, after we did it, like building that building and doing fundraising events and soccer camps, and I spoke at Lake Ann a couple times, and big things happened, and it was around Christmas season. I was sitting across from somebody I love, and we were eating dinner, and he looked at me and he goes, "So," like this, "what has Kent City got planned next year? What big thing are you going to do? What's in store? Because you did so much last year. What's in store?" And I tell you, I said, "Man, all I want to do, can I just meet with God this next year? Is that enough? Can I just worship this year? Do I got to do more?" There's a difference. You see the difference? Worship is not about lazy. It's about serving His agenda, not mine for my name. It's about His name. Or you could ask it like this. Let's get really personal. If you are a dad, why did God give you children? Did He give you children so they can be great at sports and make a lot of money? Or did He give you children so you can help them to know the living God? If you are a mom, why did God give you a family? So you can have a nice big house that's always clean and fancy, has all the nice things that the neighbors have? Or so you can provide a place that's caring, loving, supportive, and even a place where your kids can bring their friends over, where they can find refuge and love, hospitality. If you're a teacher, what is your job to make sure your students do what you say and score well on standard tests? Or to love and learn about this incredible world God made, to enjoy learning for learning's sake? Winners want to win so they will be better than others. There's a really interesting Christian philosopher named Francis Schaeffer. He's really famous in the 70s, early 80s. And he believes, he put it down, he kind of boiled down, what do Americans want? He said Americans want two things. If you're going to be honest, most Americans want two things. They want to be affluent. Affluent means have enough money so I can get what I want. Have access to buy what I want anytime I want it. I want to be affluent. He said the second thing is they want to be left alone. They just want to relax, sit, and do what they want to do without being bothered. So they want to be affluent and left alone. That's what they want. That's winning. What does God want from us? I'm not sure, but I know Jesus said this, and it pierces me every time I hear it. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many. In other words, Jesus came to worship and do the will of the Father. So after all of that, after you consider, are you a winner or a worshiper? Which one are you? Here's the question you have to ask, and people don't ask this. What happens if you don't win? Let's say you're a winner and you're driven by winning, and after all the calculating, after all the controlling and conniving, commanding, and you still don't get what you want, how do most winners respond? Look what Herod does in 16 and 19. 16 says, when Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he's not able to control him, he's not able to get what he wants, he was furious, boiling hot. This anger that was bubbling inside started coming out of him. He couldn't control himself. It's funny. Controllers who like to tell others how to behave rarely know how to control themselves. They like to control others, but they don't know how to control their own anger. The way you can tell your controller is there's this simmering bitterness, blaming others when you don't get what you want. Retaliate, retaliate, retaliate. Here's what's often not considered, and this is an even really more important question. What happens if the winner wins? What happens if the winner does get what they want? Joy, happiness, gratitude, maybe for a day. See, that's the sad part. Winners always want more. They always want more. Winners are rarely satisfied. Proverbs 27:21 says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but people are tested by the praise they receive." One commentator said, the way to interpret this is praise to a man is like placing precious metals in a crucible. That's where you burn out the dross so you know what's really in there. Praise reveals what's really in a person's nature. The one who responds to compliments with arrogance and egotism is full of pride. But the one who responds to winning with humility and real gratitude and "I don't need it" is probably like Christ. Worshippers, on the other hand, they find even in the smallest of things, they find wonder. They find joy. They don't need big things to excite them. The regular part of life excites them, even the bad, because somehow God's going to turn it good. Wise men in this story, you know what they found? They really didn't find much. They found a baby. Like, really, honestly. It's funny, Erin came in with her baby boy, and it's just a baby. Rarely do people get excited over children. Men especially. I don't want to hold that kid. I don't want to see that kid. Because there's not much return on investment. What was the return on investment for the wise men? They gave gold. They gave probably a lot of it. They gave frankincense, a very expensive gift. They gave myrrh, a perfume that was an ointment that was highly cherished. They give it to a baby and then they leave. What return on investment did they get? By the time that baby becomes a king to repay them back, they'll probably be dead. Worshippers don't care. They just give. They just give. That's the point. True worshipers, they learn contentment, a strange contentment about life. They're not here on this earth to get. They don't have relationships to use people. They sincerely just enjoy being alive so they can please God. Like, really. Wonder is fascinating. The definition means to be surprised, and it's also mingled with admiration caused by something you see that's beautiful, unexpected, unfamiliar, inexplicable. Here's how David writes about wonder, and this is what makes him wonder. This is an amazing verse, Psalm 62, 1 and 2. "You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. I've seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you." Wow. Truth is, worshipers are always winning. They're always winning because God is always in the good and the bad. They find him there. So, two ways I want to end this is, one, I want to take you to, the Bible does have a fortune cookie. Go to the book of James. I want to first end with a fortune cookie. It's James chapter 4, 13 through 17. So you want to know your future? Let's open up this cookie. Inside is a little piece of paper. It's got just 5 verses, starting at verse 13. James writes, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while, then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, You boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. That's a weird phrase to me. All such, my schemes, I'm going to do this. That's evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it's sin for them. In other words, your job is to worship. You serve. Do good. I also want to I want you to go to Psalm 39. I've been thinking a lot about this, but I'm going to talk about it a second. Psalm 39. And just about a minute. So on Tuesday, a wonderful person who grew up in his church, Cora Lindsay, is going to be getting married to Jeremiah. It'll be a beautiful day, but her dad won't be able to go, Mark Lindsley. And when I was at dialysis with Mark, I said, Mark, what psalm? What have you been meditating on? He goes, Psalm 39. Psalm 39. And specifically verse 12. And verse 12. And he said, I wish I could watch my kids grow up, see them married, hold their grandkids, but I won't be able to. And I realized, he said it like this, I think life is more about holiness and being healthy. It's more about worshiping him than getting what I want. And in verse 12, listen to what it says. Hear my prayer, Lord. Listen to my cry for help. Do not be deaf to my weeping. I dwell with you as a visitor, as a wanderer, as a foreigner. It's the NLT that says, like, I'm a visitor visiting people. A stranger, as all my ancestors were. And that verse is basically like, I'm here at God's bidding. I'm on this earth like a visitor. Last year, my wife and I went to visit this guy. We stayed at his house. He gave us a house, but we were kind of at his mercy. We kind of had to do what he wanted. In a sense, we are visitors on God's earth right now, and we are at his mercy. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know what we're going to be able to participate in and achieve. But I know this, we can worship today. We can worship him today. And if we can worship him today, then it's been a good year, a very good year.